and see ya. All right. And you can hear and see us, and that is a good thing. We are live here online in 2026 for the next season, the next year of A Democrat and Republican Walk into a Bar, the live edition until we find a new host. And I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Vanier.
And I am Christy.
Your Republican host, or maybe she's
yes,
even
you're
backing
Republican
away
host.
from
Sorry, it's been a minute.
All right. I was like, are we going neutral now? All right.
It's been a couple weeks already. I'm already like lost in the weeds.
Oh, and it's been quite a couple weeks. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what have I been doing? And I was like, Christmas. Like, I don't know. I feel like that is what I did for like
Christmas,
a solid
New
2
Year's,
months. Yeah, Christmas, New Year's, and then like almost my whole house has January birthdays.
Oh,
wow. So it's like it all just kind of woo. So the last 2 birthdays are mine and my youngest daughter. So we're January 26 and 27. So we're like, and then I'm going to be off the holiday and birthday.
So who's January 26th? Let me just confirm.
My youngest, Evie.
Okay, because that's the same birthday as my grandma. So I've got that now. I'm going to know that.
And then on the 27th. So we're like almost birthday twins. So, and grandma must be pretty cool because she's an Aquarius. And well, that's good. All right. So, well, how was your holidays season there?
My holidays were great. Just, you know how it is. It's constant like hustle and bustle. And then the worst part is getting back into the sync of working. I actually do have a new position with a 501c3. I'm not going to name them here because this is partisan. I'm being a representative of the Republican Party in my opinion, personal opinion. So I'm not going to name it, but things have been going really great. And I've been crazy busy. That's part of why, unfortunately, I had to cancel on that Sunday last week because it's just been so bananas, but life is good. Everything's happy. Everything's in a good place right now.
That's good. That's good to hear. Because there's a lot of other stuff that's going on. So honestly, things have been moving so quickly. It's going to be even hard to like recap from where we had last left off, but maybe I'll toss it over to you. Like, what is the top of mind issue?
Well, like we talked about. Yeah. So like we talked about, I had texted you last week. The thing I really, really wanted to talk about is Renee Good and what happened. And I have some things to say, but just like how when Charlie Kirk was murdered, I had a lot to say. I want to pass it on to you from your perspective. So I'm just going to preface this with, I am pro-life. A human life was lost. I do not take this lightly. I'm not taking this flippantly. I think the issue is people tend to dig in on the partisan issue of, well, we're pro-ICE, so we're going to be okay with somebody's death, and we're not going to question it as much because we're pro-ICE and we want to make sure that we protect our borders. I understand protecting the borders because it also means protecting human life. However, a human life was lost. We have to have our due diligence and pause and say, wait a minute, what is going on? We have to hear the other side. So that's where I'm coming from. And I hope that's a reasonable perspective to have, because what I saw, I was like, I want a full investigation. I truly do. And I want to see what comes of that, because I understand both sides. So I want to hear your side. I know my party's side. I understand where they're coming from. It's just that because I'm so pro-life, a human life was lost, and I can't get past it until I know like all the different opinions and we get the investigation and we discuss.
Yeah. And honestly, I think we're in agreement on that because I am in a similar position. I do believe that we shouldn't be in a position, particularly in a position where the state, like our government, is just taking people's lives, right? You know, we have war, and then there's state capital punishment, you know, because of due process. And I don't even necessarily agree with that. You know, war is still, you know, very touch and go. You know, I think that's why I gravitate towards diplomacy instead of war, right? Because I also value people's lives, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think that, and I don't know anything personally about Renee Good. I don't know anything personally about the ICE officer. I don't know anything about the situation that was happening beforehand, other than there's been these, you know, ICE raids and interactions across the country, right? I have seen the video it really looks pretty flagrant for me. But I do agree also that there should be an investigation into what really happened. And I'm actually quite concerned about how that's been going, because it does look like it's become like a bit of like a turf war or something, like FBI versus Minneapolis PD versus Department of Homeland Security, and that's very troubling in another way completely as well. So I don't think that state violence, whether it's assaulting individuals, I mean, even if people are guilty of a crime, right? Like, that to me doesn't mean that the state can just shoot you, right? Like, that's
Right.
that means that you do, they have a right to apprehend that person, but innocent until proven guilty, right? Like, that's the standard that we have. And so I think that I personally did not see anything in the video that that would have made me question whether or not this was just complete police overreach and brutality. But again, I'm not on a jury, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an investigator, right? I will stand firm on the principle that I think no one that is an authority of any kind in the United States should be hurting, injuring any person in this country at all. At all, period. Like, that should not be something
In
you
a
should
perfect
be
world,
violent,
yes.
right? Like, right. And if there, are other mitigating circumstances, or, capital punishment, et cetera, and so forth, like, there also has to be guidelines and accountability for that. So that's where I am with that.
Okay, so let me start with how I agree with you. Accountability is everything, right? Here's the thing, and I think we've talked about criminal justice reform before and how passionate I am about it. If we are giving power to individuals to detain people, even for a few minutes, this is America, home of the free. If you detain anybody, you took their freedom. The standard has to be incredibly high. Incredibly high. So that means we have to have very thorough training, retraining. And so this is something that I've actually talked about in regards to local police and, state police. It's very, very easy for local police to have probable cause and arrest somebody. And then it turns out that they're completely innocent. They don't get charged, or the charges get dropped and all this stuff. But the person got detained and their freedom was taken away, even briefly. I understand the balance for public safety, but where's the balance for like raising the bar for training and ensuring that these individuals who can take somebody's freedom are ensuring that they are going through every standard and precaution possible to be certain that this is likely a dangerous situation and the crime is being committed. And that's the balance that we're talking about. So a life has been taken. From some video perspectives, and I'm sorry, I get choked up because it really does bother me a little bit, because I don't like when human life gets taken. It really broke my heart. When a human life gets taken, you have to assess, there's some that are saying it was self-defense, and there are some that was saying it's clear that she wasn't a threat. And so that's why I advocate for an investigation, a thorough investigation, especially, releasing all angles possible of every single video so people can assess what actually happened. I will say she was instigating, but it doesn't cost a life to instigate.
Right.
Right now, Cindy, I can go to your place and start poking you on the chest. It doesn't mean you get to kill me. Right? I can start getting in your face and poking you on the chest. It doesn't mean you get to kill me. So for the same purpose, there's that. But you also have to consider there are ICE agents that are getting threatened often. They're getting doxxed. And it's a high stakes situation where their hearts are probably pounding. They're feeling very nervous, and they make errors of judgment. Or maybe it wasn't an error of judgment. Maybe it actually was that I don't know. I don't know what happened in the videos. So that's what the investigation is going to reveal. And that's what I prioritize the most, because a human life was lost. And so with all of this, this conflict that is going on, I can speak for my party, where I recommend, since we are the party of being pro-life, our goal should be finding out exactly what happened that cost this life. If it turns out she would have cost his life, fine. Like, that's what revealed, that was what was revealed in the investigation. Then at least we know, and he had to do what he had to do, or at least he reasonably thought it was going to cost his life. Contrastingly, we need to do an investigation because her life was valuable too. Whether she made a bad choice or not, her life was valuable too. And that's what matters to me. And if I can keep monologuing for just a second, I don't even know if you remember the name Ashley Babbitt.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. So for the same reason, your party dismissed her death. And we used to say, remember her name, remember her name. So that's why I'm going to remember Renee Good just as much as Ashley Babbitt.
So I'm
Wait,
going
wait,
to
hold on.
not going to compare the two because they're really
Hold
quite
on.
different.
I disagree. A human life is a human life, and decision making needs to be investigated and thorough. And so here's the thing, I'm going to add on to this. Who's going to be in control of the investigation for this death?
Right now, as far as I understand, it's FBI.
And who, like, in what administration governs the FBI right now?
The executive.
Okay. So if the FBI comes up with an interpretation that she threatened the officer, are you going to think it might be biased?
Yeah, because they're actually breaking their protocol, because what had usually happened in these types of circumstances is that the FBI and the local police would collaborate when investigating on something. But it's, from what I understand, the local policing agencies are not being involved and actually being actively shut out, which is why a lot of people are really concerned about this being basically a political cover-up.
Okay. Contrastingly, though, that's exactly how we feel about the Ashley Babbitt death. It's been brushed under the rug and dismissed. This was a person. They said she was a threat. They shot her. And I know it was with a rubber bullet. They didn't intend to use deadly force, but it did become deadly.
And it was
that's
different.
A fact.
And she was attacking the U.S. Capitol, and she was halfway through going into, she was in an illegal situation. She was going into the House chambers, and she was halfway through.
And Renee Good
had been death threats to the people inside there. So this is really rather different to me.
I disagree.
This person, so Renee was not, there were people saying, oh, she was a legal observer. Some people said that she just lived on the street. I'm not entirely sure. She was in her car, in her vehicle, otherwise not doing anything illegal. And she was not threatening anybody else's life at that time.
First of all, the shooting happened when she moved her car that caused the threatening.
And she was shot 3 times at point blank range with live ammunition, not a rubber bullet.
Okay, I understand, Cindy. However, you could dicker about the issue is, you could say Ashley Babbitt's assault was not fatal, but it was. She lost her life. I understand. And so, yes, I totally understand. But the issue is, to me, a human life is lost. And everything needs to go into an investigation. Sure. And there needs to be an equal amount of outrage. So what happened was Capitol Police, yes. And in fact, Renee Good was also being rather threatening. She was trying to impede. She was engaging in something. She was engaging in impeding ICE agents.
That's not the same. And I'll say, just with the intention, because that goes a long way, that officer in the U.S. Capitol had rubber bullets and did not shoot her 3 times at point blank in the face and the head and the chest.
It doesn't matter. She still died.
Sure it does. It does, because here's the difference. If somebody dies and it's in relation to a protective action that was intentionally non-lethal, right? It's still I agree it should be investigated. I agree that there should be accountability, but it is far different than point blank shooting somebody 3 times with lethal ammunition. There's a difference of intention. I think the circumstances are totally different, so I don't even think that the comparison is the same, frankly. But I just see them as very, very different in terms of how it happened, how it was set up, and how the intentionality of the officers that were involved was at that time.
Okay, well, I'm just going to throw out one more time, though. If somebody died from a rubber bullet, this is not the first time. The proximity,
Okay.
all those details. So just because it's a rubber bullet, it doesn't matter. They are fully aware that it could be fatal. That is equally part of their thinking as they are conducting their actions. So that is something to keep into consideration. But again,
I do
like I'm
believe that
pointing out,
also she was not complying, right? Isn't that part of it? Because she was actually stopped. Ashley
absolutely,
Babbitt was
asked to stop
specifically
yes,
asked to stop it coming in a violent and threatening manner against members of Congress and the police. And
absolutely.
again, and that's not the circumstance that had happened with Renee Good. These are just, I mean, for me, these are two totally different, like I don't see a lot of grounds for comparison on these two. That's just my opinion.
I see at least some, enough that it's relevant. So Cindy, like you just tried to, you just flipped the switch a little bit and you switch the narrative. So you're saying, well, is it comparative that we as Republicans are claiming that Renee Good she's an instigator and it caused the issue because of noncompliance? Ashley Babbitt also did the same thing. I agree.
I don't think that there was non-compliance with Renee Good, from what I understand.
So when she got into a car and started driving away, that was compliance?
She was told to drive away.
So when she started driving towards an ICE agent, and an ICE agent has internal bleeding, reportedly, from this encounter, that was compliance?
I did not actually see any strike on the officer from any of the videos that I've seen. And yes, she was told to move her car. She was told to move along. So that, from what I understand, she was trying to comply. Now, other reports that I had seen that there was like conflicting and confusing things that she was told, but that's quite different from somebody who is intentionally invading the Capitol and intentionally trying to go into the U.S. House chambers with malintent at the least. Okay, like she was on the street, she was giving confusing advice, and she was hit. She did not have any other weapons on her. She was not threatening, and the video of the dialogue that had happened ahead of time was not of a threatening nature.
Right. And so let me break this down from my perspective. And I'm not saying they're the same. I'm saying there are some comparable factors. We have two young women that lost their lives, and those lives were valuable. Those lives mattered. My issue is the fact that we have an outrage for this situation, and we want an investigation, and we want this, and I'm advocating with you that I want an investigation because we lost that life. But I realize that some people don't want a full investigation into the decision making here. And here's the overarching issue. Whether somebody, whether someone deserves it and whether somebody doesn't, or somebody deserves it and somebody doesn't, the issue is training and ensuring that these things don't keep happening. As you said before, the whole premise of this conversation was when a state action by any police or a law enforcement officer takes a life, we need to take it seriously. So whether we think somebody instigated it, deserved it, whatever, it needs to be, those people need to be remembered, because I believe this is an issue of reform to the top level all the way down. And that's where I'm coming from with this conversation. I know you're not comparing the two girls as comparable, but to me, both of these girls indicate that we need reform in the criminal justice and law enforcement.
So I don't know that there was anybody saying that there shouldn't be an investigation into what happened with Ashley Babbitt. In fact, I think there's a lot of people that were very interested in everything that happened on January 6th, including what had happened with Ashley Babbitt. So that's the other thing, is like, that feels like this is not necessarily a similar situation as well. Like I genuinely will say, particularly progressive folks on the left, we agree with criminal justice reform. We agree with the idea that, police shouldn't be shoot first, ask questions later, like, because we shouldn't have a government that's just allowed to kill people whenever they want, right? Like that's a pretty fundamental thing. So I don't think that there's anybody that would say that we shouldn't investigate what happened with Ashley Babbitt. And I can have all the opinions about her that I want. I think she's a traitor personally. But do I think that she should have died? No. Do I think it was appropriate? Like, do I think that there should be an investigation into what happened? And I do believe that there was. Yeah, I do. I don't know. For me, like, I'm not getting either vibes or set up in terms of similarity on these, but I will say that I do think that it is valuable that we can agree that there should be accountability in these type of situations.
Absolutely. But that's why this is a Democrat and Republican walk into a bar, because that's your perspective, because you work in your circles. But from my perspective, I remember arguing with people constantly, like, investigate into Ashley Babbitt. What happened there? What was the decision making? And here's the issue with the investigations that did occur. Notice that the investigations were towards the conduct of the people entering the Capitol. And so there was some bias towards that investigation. It was directed towards them as opposed to the law enforcement. The investigation was not, so it was already justifying the law enforcement, similarly to what might happen with this situation with Renee Good. So that's why I asked you, do you think it might be biased as a result? Because I was trying to show you this is where the comparison lies.
Okay.
And so that's where I was getting with. Like, I was going with this idea that
Are you saying we should abolish the police and defund the police?
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is we need reform. What I'm saying is we need better training.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying we need thoroughly better training. The way it's being run right now, we need thoroughly better training. We need higher standards. We need higher requirements. We need higher probable cause, higher reasonable suspicion. We need something better than what is happening right now. And 100%. So for that very perspective, as far as the January 6th investigations, it was towards the rioters, but now it's going to be towards ICE. And so that's why I think it should be equal investigations to both ends every single time. So everybody, and transparent. So everybody of the American people gets the exact story of what happened and understands why an American life got taken.
Yeah, and I agree. And I'll extend that to all police shootings, right? Like, because that's where I believe that, there's a lot of things that get, thrown under the rug. I will also say that I think one of the critiques of what's been going on with ICE in Minneapolis and other places is that there's been such a huge uptick in recruitment that it seems as though the training may not have been up to par, so to speak. And also there's kind of like jurisdictional issues as well as to legally what ICE is allowed to do. And frankly, whether or not those officers fully understand that, right? So I think that there's a lot of issues when it comes to that inherently make this situation real volatile for people all over the country.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with regular law enforcement, though, because there's a high need. And here's why there's such a high need. Few people want to put their life at risk. Few people want to have to. And, we can joke about cops just sitting, eating their donuts and drinking their coffee and stuff all we want to. But the thing is, the fact that there are cops that put their lives at risk. And that any single moment they could be living a chill, perfect life, never have any issues, and then suddenly they're injured or suddenly they're killed. That is why people aren't willing to do that job. And because of that, I see you smirk.
I got something to say. Go ahead.
You're raring to go. And because of that, I feel for them. However, and so that's why I feel like they thought they needed to lower the standard to recruit more. As much as I understand that perspective, it's not good enough, in my opinion. We need to have a higher standard. So, for example, we cannot allow police officers to be able to say, look, I think I smell something. Get out of the car. That's not enough anymore, especially come on, no one can verify that. No one else is around. That is not evidence. In my opinion, we need to have higher standards of what police are allowed to fully witness and prove before they detain a person. Freedom is the number one
Yeah.
right in this country. That's what we are. We are the land of the free. It's not enough. So I get their side. I really do. I understand back the blue, but to back the blue, in my opinion, we need to fund it more. And then we need to say we're going to raise the standard way more. We need to have higher qualified people. What it is now, we're not going to fund that more. We are going to create a higher ranking system.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to fund more to make sure that these incidences don't happen again. More training, more education, more practice. That's like how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. How about that? No, I agree. I do agree that we need to have accountability. We need to have better training. We need to have higher standards. And frankly, I think, yeah, if we want that, we need to fund that. I believe that. I mean, because I have a fundamental belief in like public funding for public goods, right?
Yes.
If we want something, that's what we got to get. And if we're not going to pay enough, we're not going to get something. We have to do it right.
Yes.
So the other thing, the couple of things that I did want to just push back on is this idea is that, first of all, I don't think that we have a hiring crisis in policing, as far as I know. I've done analysis of jobs especially across Southwest Florida. I know that actually we have far more firefighters trained than we have firefighter positions, and we may have some openings, but nowhere near as like the level of openings that we have for like physicians or carpenters or something like that. Okay, so I guess I just, on the policing side, I don't see this necessity to push people through, right? I guess that kind of goes with your argument, like, hey, we could train people better because we don't have a crisis.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you. I know there's not a crisis. I was just saying this is their side, but this is why I say it's not enough.
ICE is trying to ramp up really quick, so it does seem like they've lowered a ton of standards. You can be 18 years old and all sorts of stuff right now.
No degree, and that's okay. You don't need a degree, but the lack of training, the lack of time in training, and the lack of
training
and the lack of, like, to me, like when arrests or detainments are being made, I feel like there needs to be a higher level of, I checked this box and I proved it. I checked this box and I proved it.
Follow the protocol, right?
Exactly. I can't just say, well, their eyes looked a little bloodshot and I smelled something. Like it needs to be something legitimate.
Right. The other thing was, yes, so people, the idea that the policing is the most dangerous job. We also know that it's not the most dangerous job. There's a lot of jobs that actually take a lot of risk into it. I think there's a lot of perceived fear, but there's also a lot of perceived power with policing. And unfortunately, what happens is that attracts people who want that power. And I think that's also a problem, right? We get these really bad mofos and they want to get in there and they're like, yeah, I'm going to kick ass for the good guys or whatever, and they're not really interested in checking the box and doing the protocol, right? But yeah, so there's things like pizza delivery drivers have a higher death rate, coal miners have a higher death rate, just to name the two I could remember off the top of my head, but there are several others that have a higher death rate. And that will actually go back to the fact that we don't actually have a huge criminality problem in this country, despite what people are concerned about. Violent crime has been down from the highs of the 70s and highs of the 90s. We've seen some upticks, in COVID in relation to some violent crime, as also property crime, but that has also kind of gone back down. So I don't see this like huge, we have to like have this hyper militarized local policing office to help save our communities, because for the most part our communities are safe, right? And people have been ginned up on this, unfortunately, to believe that we need to have somebody with a gun standing on every single corner to keep us safe. And I just don't think that the data has backed that up.
Well, so actually, again, I'm going to agree with you on this. You and I are actually pretty much like here. This is so rare for us. Normally we're like, even if we're kind of agreeing, we're a little bit off, and sometimes we're radically off. This is actually something that you and I are completely in agreement with. I agree with you. like nothing that you said, I disagree with. The issue is, again, like, so that's what I was pointing out. I was pointing out my party's side, but that's why I mentioned in the beginning, people dig in
Sure.
and they don't want to give a little bit and be like, yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from though.
Yeah.
And that's why we do this podcast, is like, parties tend to dig in. We don't like the police, we love the police. And then instead of being like, well, maybe we can fix it a little bit, maybe there are adjustments to be made. So like you just mentioned, I agree, there is no hiring crisis. There are higher death rates in other jobs, absolutely. But on paper, what's it like? Ask a little kid, what's the most dangerous job to have? And what's the most likely response they're going to say? Police officer.
Probably firefighter.
Right? Or firefighter. Firefighter or police officer. But you get my point, right?
I know. Yeah, I do.
That's what you say. And so it's the mentality. And honestly, let's be real, the mentality contributes to why law enforcement tends to like to hire. Sure. And let's really touch the third rail. The more they hire and the more they create a need, the more money they get.
Oh, yes. I was wondering if you were going to jump on the fiscal conservative bandwagon with that one. Yeah, it actually ends up becoming a very fantastic example of capture, right? It's like, oh, this is like a favored agency. So politicians, because in this state, the state of mind, it was like, oh, we want to be safe. So they'll dole out the cash, right? But the sheriff, the police department, be sure that they're going to keep giving you the budget that you need, and they're going to keep jacking up that budget because they know that they can get it. And fiscal conservative people should be really wary of that, because right now in Fort Myers City, we have like half an army's worth of arsenal sitting in the downtown Fort Myers PD parking lot that I think is only ever used for the touch a truck events for kids, right? Like, is that a good use of public dollars?
No. Yeah, and I will say also, with Lee County in general, the marketing budget and things like that. Why are we marketing police? We don't need to market police. And I have a lot of respect for law enforcement. Do not get me wrong. I appreciate everything they do. However, we have to prioritize, and I'm calling it out right now. This is not a priority. Why are we marketing? Why are we worried about social media? You shouldn't even have a social media. What you should be doing is your job, which is patrolling the streets and making everything safe. And so your budget should reflect what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I also, listen, there are a significant amount of legally dubious things that are on the Lee County Sheriff's TikTok in particular, right? Like parading people through the streets, people who have not been convicted of anything, calling them, putting drug house things outside. I mean, that's cute if you're on TikTok, but like, yeah, what happened to, habeas corpus, right? Like, what happened to, being presumed innocent, until you're proven guilty? Like, if that is what is TikTok worthy, like I've had, we can go on about the Lee County Sheriff quite a lot, because that's corruption too, in my opinion, because it does seem that a lot of that came with the idea that the sheriff himself wanted to be the face of everything. And lo and behold, just like a Filipino politician, his face was all over everything as soon as he got elected, right? Never seen anything in the United States like that until, right? I've seen it in other developing countries where it's not, uncommon for those politicians to slap their face on everything so that they can get the kudos that they think they deserve. But that is sure what Carmine Marcino has done all over Lee County. His face is on the ice cream truck, on every window. And it seems as though this was not to help the people of Lee County feel safe, because why having a 5'4", Rambo wannabe would make them feel safe, I have no idea. But it's to promote himself. That was the problem, and the lifestyle that he wanted to lead. He wanted to be the cool guy driving the Lambo down the street, and the good guy who's like, helping the kids and giving them ice cream and doing cool TikToks and armor, we had one where it was like, what do they call it? The hammer, where they like went through somebody's door. I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. But anyway, it's all was an attempt to give him more popularity, more notoriety. So maybe he can run for Congress here. Maybe he can run for governor at some point, right? And that is like an ungodly amount of abuse of public funds, in my opinion.
Right. So here's what I will say. I cannot speak to his height. I will not speak about I will not
I
speak
will be
about
petty.
anything. I'm sorry. I'm not going to speak to his height. I will not speak to him personally. I'm not even going to just stay specific with Lee County. I will make this a broader statement. And as it applies to Lee County, say what you will. My issue is, yes, there should not be any kind of extra marketing involved to law enforcement when all of those funds could be used to more training. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So, like I pointed out the example, how many people, and I wish there were a statistic of how many people get pulled over and told to get out of their car, how many people get detained briefly, how many people get arrested and not charged. I need to see all those statistics just to compare, like, how many times does somebody's freedom get taken away, even for 30 seconds, by law enforcement wrongfully. And I bet the number is going to be jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to how many wrongful convictions have been made. I know my party is not the biggest fan sometimes of the Innocent Project. I love the Innocent Project because I know for a fact that a lot of people have been wrongfully convicted due to failure to provide actual accurate evidence. In fact, oh my gosh, I've got to bring this up. I totally got distracted. Did you see there was an article that just got released, not like in the last couple of days, about a woman who was detained for 2 days for breaking her, I guess, her restraining order. So she had a partner. Let me start from the beginning.
Okay.
A lady had a boyfriend and they got into an argument. She called the police on him because he was getting erratic. Next thing she knows, according to her, allegedly, he starts hitting himself and scratching himself. Police arrive. He says that she's the one that attacked him. She gets detained. She gets a restraining order. Then, a couple months later, she allegedly sent texts to the boyfriend that were mocking and rude and threatening and demeaning, in which she gets detained another 2 days and is charged with violating the restraining order. It turns out those text messages were made by AI. And police, nor anybody else in the court system, bothered to take the extra steps to corroborate if the evidence was real before they detained her. Sorry, I just randomly thought of that because that is something I had written down that I wanted to talk to you about. But, but now that we're on this criminal justice thing, again, it's all about that higher standard and higher funding. And higher funding, if it's going to be higher funding, needs to go to the right place and for the right reasons. What I'm seeing is if it's going to marketing, it does not need to go to law enforcement. It needs to go somewhere else. How about give it to education? Hi, I'm a teacher. We could definitely use it.
Right.
We don't need to give extra funding to law enforcement for marketing. We could give it to law enforcement for more training and higher standards.
Yeah. And actually, let me loop this back to the whole defund the police thing, if I can, just for a moment, because that was always, that was a rallying call for some very, very extreme folks. But really what people wanted was those budgets that might be going through something like quasi-military equipment or marketing to be shifted towards things like de-escalation or mental health issues, right? There's a huge problem that I have a history with, working in homeless services as I did for many years. We force police officers to be the first line of intervention when somebody's having a mental health addiction crisis, right? Or combination of those two things. When it is, they probably need like a social worker or, something like that. But many people can't even get into services unless they've actually been arrested and Baker acted or something like those lines, which actually increases the likelihood of violence against the police officers, self-violence, and, then gives them a criminal record and all this other kind of stuff. It's a really, really very detrimental system that we've developed here in Florida for people who are having mental health issues. And if we had another way to deal with that. I mean, it could even be still within a police department, but it's like, hey, we're going to send the mental health emergency team,
Right.
instead of the bang bang cops, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, don't send the guys that are just like ready to crack skulls to the guy that's trying to kill himself, right? Like,
yeah. So when a person gets Baker acted and they're not harming anybody else, but they're threatening to maybe swallow a bunch of pills or something like that, they still get put into handcuffs. They still get put into the back of a police car. And even though they're told you're not in trouble, like I know, like the protocol is you're not in trouble, we're just going to take you there. But it's still like a humiliating, and it brings that person down even worse. Like that. Yes, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Go on.
That's really actually what it meant, guys. I'm just saying, I know it was like a really fun thing to poke at Democrats because a handful of, really extreme leftists were like said that. But really what it was is like, let's make the alignment of the funding for public safety towards the goals that we wanted. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to kind of loop back on that, because I know there's probably somebody's going to pull a clip of me saying defund the police here and try to say that's what I was trying to say, but I was not. I was saying like let's just have it be aligned where we want. And the other thing I want to pick up on from what you said was about the AI. That is some scary BS right now, because AI is bananas and it can make a whole bunch of stuff. And if our law enforcement is like can't tell the difference and is arresting people, yeah, we have a huge problem.
Huge problem.
Yeah.
Huge. It's terrifying. And so actually I had a really great conversation with a friend of mine yesterday where we were talking about AI and how a lot of people are advocating for legislation to limit the development of AI. Right now, I'm not in favor of that. There's no evidence of why we should limit anything. I'm a capitalist. I'm sorry. I believe that like we should let things develop as it is. There's no current threat that we can see. With that said, this is the threat. This is something we can legislate on. Use of AI, effective use of AI, ethical use of AI, virtuous use of AI. So we have a perfect example right here. Someone was a victim, and it's probably not the only one.
Sure.
Where we can create legislation, we, meaning states, can create legislation that says, okay, so falsification of evidence is a thing, tampering of evidence is a thing, but now we're going to create a separate entity of false AI use to create like criminal justice abuse or criminal justice system abuse. And so there should be penalties, not just for the person that created the evidence, but there should be standards in which people in the criminal justice system, law enforcement, lawyers, so prosecutors and public defenders, judges, there should be standards on how they address evidence as well, and when they admit it. Because if they admit false evidence that they should have looked into and they should have verified, then that's on them. So I think that this, like, I was reading that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that yet, to be honest. I hadn't thought of that. Like, gosh dang it, now there's a new thing to be concerned about. I didn't think about that. Because what's been interesting about AI and the AI wars and the coming AI wars, of course, you may or may not have seen this, folks, but, Trump had put out, I can't remember if it was just a statement or executive order at this point, but basically he said, hey, like, let's not regulate AI. Okay, that was the Trump position, and all the AI tech bros are like, yeah. DeSantis, on the other hand, said, no, we need to regulate this. So actually my opponent, Jenna Persons-Malika, just filed a bill that is all about, containing the development and containing AI. So it's kind of turning into this other weird battleground too between the Trump v. DeSantis battle, I guess, is continuing here for us in Florida. And it's going to be on AI. So have you heard anything about this?
Well, so yeah, I have, but how about I just break it down in terms of just AI, because I went into a rabbit hole, Cindy. I went crazy looking into this. And so I just, you see, I'm getting excited like talking about this, because it's really, I see, again, so I'm always the one that says, I see both sides, but this is where I land. One side, like Ron DeSantis and JD Vance. JD Vance has actually advocated for regulating AI in the past as well. I'm not sure if he's currently doing that, but he has in the past.
Is he allowed to have an opinion right now? Sorry. Just kidding. So is he allowed to have an opinion right now?
Yes, he's allowed to have an opinion, Cindy.
Just kidding. The vice president just
Something
doesn't
petty.
do anything. They just sit
He's a human
around
being.
waiting. I know. I'm just messing.
No, he's
Just
a human
playing.
being. He's allowed to have an opinion. So, sorry, I'm poking fun at you too. All right. So I understand their perspective. Okay, funny. My favorite movie is Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Okay, mine
It's
too. And I just
That's
showed this to
ironic.
my kids because I make so many Terminator 2 references. And I'm like, this is how it's going to happen. The AI is going to take over, and then the robots. And I'm like, I am Linda Hamilton in this whole thing, just so you know. Okay, everybody? That's my lifelong goal. I do not feel like I've given my children enough armament training at this point to survive the resistance against the machines, but I'm working on it.
So, okay, there's a lot of different factors. Like I said, this is my favorite movie. However, AI currently still cannot, and like as far as we know, cannot think for itself. It does not think for itself. What AI does is they conduct hallucinations. Hallucinations. So before, AI would regurgitate and literally almost copy and paste and piece together work of different people and make it into one big answer. Now it's mimicking patterns of human thought, but it can't come up with its own thought. In fact, there has been some studies where it's exposing that there's so much use of AI now that AI is patterning itself after AI and becoming less effective, and it degrades itself sometimes because there's so little human thought being put out there that it's just mimicking AI and it's
We're
not
making
improving.
ourselves use
It
this?
happens.
Okay.
It happens. So like if you sometimes you'll see like AI, you're like, what are you talking about? You're completely wrong. Like, and AI is wrong a lot. With that said, I understand the JD Vance and your perspective, Linda Hamilton style, like defense wanting to regulate AI as much as possible, because from their perspective, this is a rapidly growing piece of technology that we are putting off and saying it's not an issue right now. We'll wait till it's an issue before we regulate. But knowing how slow legislation works, by the time we decide to regulate, it's already too late. That's that perspective. From the other perspective, it's not showing a threat right now. It's not going anywhere. It's going to keep developing no matter how we regulate it, because these are self-learning programs. So we either flow with it and learn to effectively and ethically use it to the point that we can coexist and function well as a society.
I don't know how we're doing that without AI very well, but anyway.
That's why I told you I went down a rabbit hole. That's why I'm studying as hard as I can to understand how to effectively use it and so I'm like, every time AI gives me anything, I will check its sources, and then also I rewrite it on my own. I'm like, thank you for these bones. Now I'm going to go through the whole process and do it again. And that's why I try to enhance my own thinking process.
So what's I've been finding interesting about the AI wars, right? Is that fundamentally, and this is where I'll say this is my opinion too. I think it also comes down to who's in your camp. And right now, the tech bros are in Trump's camp. They're not in DeSantis' camp. Okay. DeSantis is still old school energy, construction, do. Okay. And what I understand, and the reason that so many of the tech bros and their companies don't want regulations on AI is because they want to be the first to create the AI that thinks for itself. And I forget the term for it right now. But basically, the idea is that they're all racing as fast as they can to improve this technology, to be the first to come out with it. So that way they can capture the entire market, is what I understand. Right. And so they kind of want to have a no holds barred, as many data centers, whatever, to be able to do that, because essentially they're looking at this AI and the AI future as being able to control everything, and the first company that gets there is going to defeat all the rest of them essentially, and be the one company that will run. They're Cyberdyne. Just saying. Right?
It's Skynet.
They're all rushing to be the first Skynet so they can take us over. I think the original Terminator said that was supposed to be like 1997. They're a
Was
little
it?
bit
Yeah.
behind that timeline.
I love that you love Terminator too. That's so funny. Like that we both are Terminator fans. I love it.
Oh my God. Like I said, I literally just showed it to my kids because I was like, you
Yes.
need to have this reference. And then I'm like, and also Battlestar Galactica. That's the other one. Did you watch Battlestar Galactica? No?
No.
Okay.
That was a nerd show, I was told.
It is a nerd show. It's a super nerd show, but here it's actually like super good. Like, here's a future scenario of AI, right? So the Terminator scenario for AI is it gets smart enough to realize that we're the enemy and tries to destroy us. And they're also like very mechanical. Now, Battlestar Galactica is actually much closer to our reality, to be honest. So like go back and watch it. It's also like a Christianity Jesus story parallel and has some really cool Bob Dylan scenes. Anyway, but their AI, they look human. So you can't tell except for they're just copies. Okay.
Gotcha.
And so that one also has this kind of like metaphor about like who's really human and who gets to have human rights kind of thing as well. But yeah, so that one's really interesting because they then battle over the earth. It's like the humans who are born human with original DNA versus the humans who are AI copies. And they're fighting over the planet. And spoiler alert, the AI ones win and they jettison the actual, the humans out into space. And that's why it's called Battlestar Galactica. So,
okay, cool. Good to know.
Those are the two ones that I'm always like, oh my God. And also, by the way, it's the bathrooms of Battlestar Galactica are always my solution when anybody wants to talk about the trans bathroom issue, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, we just need the Battlestar Galactica bathrooms because it's
know what the Battlestar Galactica bathroom is.
You gotta watch the show. It's total gender parity. It's total gender parity on like sports and stuff too, and total gender parity on the bathrooms. And actually, it looks like fun. So it's like because they're like all in the military and they're like hanging out in the showers, and it's totally like non-gross, weird sex kind of thing. It's just like we're all like tough military people and we're just we got to poop and we got to take a shower, and that for me was a beautiful vision for the future of bathrooms.
Well, we can get to that probably in the next episode because you just dropped that bomb on me 9 minutes before the hour's up or 7 minutes before the hour is up, and that's not fair, girl. But
I will say, watch Battlestar Galactica to know what I'm talking about.
I will say, like on the trans issue, I've got a lot of opinions. That's great that it worked out for those military people, but I'm not a military person, and I can tell you that there's a lot of men that can completely just like throw me into a wall whenever they feel like it with like a flick of their finger. So I don't want to be in that parody right now. I would like to be given my own space.
Future when we're fighting against AI. We finally achieved
so in the
gender
future,
parity.
like who knows what the future might bring. But as far as trans community, that's a whole other issue. And again,
let's not dive into that right now.
LGBT marriage. I'm pro LGBT marriage. I am pro trans. It's okay if you want to be an adult and make that choice. We can get into it another time. But as for female spaces, just give me mine. I'd prefer mine.
Sean, former host here, just like I walked in at the weirdest time. Sean, the TLDR is we both love Terminator, and we're talking about the future of AI. And I'm just saying, like, the two most likely scenarios in my mind is either the Terminator scenario or the Battlestar Galactica. And then I added this thing on about the bathrooms in Battlestar Galactica being the perfect future utopian version of toileting. And I encourage everybody to watch Battlestar Galactica, not just for the toilets, but for the whole plot.
I'm glad you think so much about the future of toileting, Cindy. That's great. Future of toileting is definitely on the forefront of your brain.
Do you remember my class where I had a whole section on toilets?
I do remember that. It's funny. Now that you bring that up, that makes me laugh.
I actually think I ended up taking that out of the class, but literally, because this is such a big cultural issue that people don't talk about. Is like how we bathroom. But I think about it a lot more than a regular person.
So to recap for whatever, if you want to repost this clip, because I highly recommend it because that's funny. Cindy was my former professor in college, and we ended up running against each other in Congress later on in life, and then we've become adult friends. But yeah, she did totally teach a segment on toileting, and now that she just reminded me, I remember I was her first ever class, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were my first class. Yep.
Like,
I think it started it where I was like, I showed a picture, and I'm like, so what do you do in this room?
I remember that. But
You don't even know.
Do you remember the Japanese one though? I was like, I've been to Japan. I know what to do.
Yep. Yeah.
I was so excited for that one.
Yeah, because it was the point was too was like there's all these weird cultural differences, and then we don't talk about it, and And I think it was there was one because the Indonesian here, this is what it is. The Indonesian toilet, you're supposed to turn around and face out, but the Japanese toilets are squatty potties that you face in. And that was that threw me for a loop. I'm not gonna lie. And we had a big debate within like my friends. So we were like, oh, how are you using this thing?
What are you doing?
And then right. But if you look at how the feet are shaped, you see that it's supposed to be out. Anyway, very complicated, very cultural. This is like high culture. I'm just kidding. I love it because it's like poop. And I also used to be a kindergarten teacher, and we used to do like the Everybody Poops book. So this is just like the college level version.
Yeah.
So.
It was peak global studies, guys. I loved it. It was a great class. I loved your class. You know it. You were the only class I ever got more than 100% because I did that extra credit assignment, even though I didn't need to.
Yep. And then I showed that video to everybody for years because it was the best video ever. It was perfect. It was on human trafficking. I was like, she did this video with carrots and peaches on human trafficking. It was amazing.
And a zucchini. Don't forget the zucchini with the mustache was the villain.
That's right. It was fantastic. All right, that's a good. Let's end it on there. We can jump into other issues next week. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in, and our, Sean. Hope you're doing well over there, buddy. And don't forget to check out our website here, bigmouthmediafl.com. You'll be able to listen to all of the episodes on bigmouthmedia.com, bigmouthmediafl.com. Don't forget that FL. And if you want to help us out, you want to keep the lights on, help us keep producing the show, we'd love to have you subscribe. $4.99 a month, $49.99 a year, and then we'll email the episodes to you, all of our articles, and you help us keep going, keep this dialogue going. And we would sure love to have you there. So I have been your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banier.
And I'm your Republican host, Christy.
And this has been a Democrat and Republican Walk Into a Bar from Big Mouth Media. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.